So somewhere you might want to put 3 terms, right? Oh, there's Trayshawn. I knew we'd get some more people. If we go to the next slide, we see some puzzles. So the way these puzzles are going to help us is we're going to figure out what multiplies to 15. So the directions are there's a pair of factors that multiply to the top number and then add up to the bottom number. So what multiplies to 15 and adds up to 8? Well, we do our little T-chart like we did yesterday. 1 times 15 is 15. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 plus 5 is 8. So our little side numbers here are 3 and 5. Okay. If you've just joined us, if you go into the Schoology page, you want to open up that quadratics notebook. That's where we are. And we are on page 10, I think. Yeah, page 10. So
it won't let me have access to the slides.
Oh. That's weird how it turned bright orange down here. I wonder if I have the right version in there. Sometimes I have multiple versions, so let me go find it. CT problems. I'm not seeing it. Let's do this. Maybe I have this one loaded in there. Is it giving you access now?
I'm checking. Yeah, it is.
Okay. So I may not have to wait for this one. But we'll open this one anyway, just to be sure. All right. Everybody have access? And honestly, today it might be easier to do this on a piece of paper than to do it in the Pear Deck or in the Google Slides. Okay. So Elias, you're just joining us. We're on that same PowerPoint from yesterday. We're on page 10 and we're doing these X puzzles. So what I want to know is what will multiply to 35 and add up to 12. So if you're not sure, you can come over here and make your little T-chart. 1 and 35. 3 doesn't go into 35. 4 doesn't go into 35. 5 goes into 35. So 5 and 7. 5 plus 7 equals 12. So I'm going to put a 5 and a 7 here. So the question you're asking yourself is what multiplies to 35 and what adds up to 12. So in the next problem, what multiplies to negative 20 and adds up to 1? What multiplies to negative 20 and adds up to 1? So we could do 1 and 20, or 2 and 10, or 4 and 5. Because I've got a negative 20, one of these numbers has to be negative. And because I want to end up with a positive 1, the bigger number has to be positive. So positive 5 and negative 4, do they multiply to negative 20? Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, so that works out. And negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1, so that works out. Has anybody done these X puzzles before? Did you do these in algebra with any of your teachers?
I did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah? Okay, sweet. So they're familiar. So what about the 48 and the 14? What do I do there? So we can make our T-chart, right? 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, I want to say. 4 and 12, 6 and 8. So all I do is go down the number line and I only write the things that have 2 whole number factors. So which pair of those add up to 14?
6 and 8.
6 and 8, absolutely, Ela. What about the negative 28 and the 3? So negative 28 and negative 3. All right, see ya, good luck. Are 4 and 7 3 away from each other?
Yes, 4 and negative 7.
Absolutely. So I want that negative 7 because the negative 3, or the 3 is negative, then the bigger number needs to be negative, right? What about the negative 9 and the 0? Anybody? I've heard from Elif. I've heard from Thomas. Who else can I hear from? What multiplies to negative 9 and adds up to 0? I only have 2 choices, 1 and 9 or 3 and 3. Which pair of numbers do I want?
3 and 3.
3 and 3. Because the 9 is negative, one of those 3's has to be negative.
The 3 on the left side.
That works. Does it matter which one is negative?
No.
It doesn't. So you just need to make one of them negative. What multiplies to negative 30 and adds up to positive 29? What multiplies to 30 and adds up to 29? Negative 30 and 29. You can put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. We shouldn't be shy at this point, ladies and gentlemen. We've been together almost an entire term. What if I tell you it's 1 and 30? Which one of those needs to be negative and which one needs to be positive? The 1 100% needs to be negative. Was that you, Bryce? Awesome. So we're going to use these X puzzles in order to solve trinomials, or factor them actually today. We're not going to actually solve them. So if you skip through slide 11 that says no peeking, you can look at slide 12 and all of our answers should be there. We're going to multiply to 35 and add up to 12. Multiply to 48 and add up to 14. Multiply to negative 9 and add up to 0. Multiply to negative 30 and add up to 29, okay? The first thing when you start Algebra 2, you're going to need to know all of these multiplication facts. So if you don't know your multiplication facts, that would be something to practice this summer, okay? It will make your life so much easier if you have your multiplication facts just off the top of your head and you don't have to go to a calculator, okay? So now that we know we've got all those right answers, let's look and actually get the meat of the notes. So page 13 and 14 is going to take the bulk of the day, and then we'll do some practice and see how you do, and probably get out about 10 minutes early. So we already said factoring trinomials. Trinomials are going to have 3 terms. So the first term is going to have an x squared in it. The second term is going to have an x in it, and then the third term is not going to have any variable in it. In order to factor trinomials, it has to be in this order. Something x squared plus something x plus a whole number, okay? Again, if at the end of the day you're still not sure what I had you doing, there's a 12-minute video right here. It'll be a lot shorter than my 50-minute video once we're done with the day. There are basically 6 steps, and they get like a little hard to read if we just look at them. But basically, the first step is to identify the A's, the B's, and the C's. The A is in front of that squared variable, so that's the invisible 1. The B is in front of the V variable, the one that's a power of 2, so that's 12. And then the C is that last term, okay? The very first thing we're going to do is multiply the A and the C together, right? So we've identified, we've put our A times C into the top of the puzzle. That's what we're going to multiply to. And then that middle number goes down to the bottom. So what multiplies to 32 and adds up to 12? Well, that's 8 and 4. 8 times 4 is 32, and 8 plus 4 is 12. This first term slides down to the beginning, and this second term slides down to the end. That is always, it doesn't ever change. And then this in the middle of the X puzzle goes in the middle of our equation. Okay, so all you're doing is taking the beginning and putting it at the beginning. You're taking the middle and putting it in the middle, and you're taking the end and putting it at the end. After you do that, you need to take out a greatest common factor. Okay, so there's a lot of steps. There's 6 steps here. It's going to take us a while to master all of these 6 steps. You're going to be tempted to take shortcuts. Don't take shortcuts until you feel 100% sure about the process. Okay, that's my warning to you right now. So instead of laboring over these notes, let's go see what it looks like in practice. So grab a piece of paper, because I strongly, I can't stress that enough, encourage you to write this down on a piece of paper. Okay, that's how you're going to remember it and be able to go back to it. Because these are all on one slide, my work is going to get a little messy. Okay, you ready? Everybody got a piece of paper? Okay. Step number 1 was to find the A, the B, and the C. So the A is 1. That's the invisible 1 right there. The B is 9. That's the 9 right there. That's the B. And then the C is 14. That's this guy right here. So identify your A, your B, and your C on your piece of paper. Write down A equals 1, B equals 9, and C equals 14. You want to write down the whole equation too. M squared plus 9m plus 14. The second step is to multiply the first number and the last number. So you're going to multiply the A and the C. That goes at the top of your X puzzle. So that top thing, 1 times 14 is 14. Then the 9 comes down. That's going to go to the bottom of your X puzzle. So my question is, what multiplies to 14 and adds to 9? Anybody who thinks they have an idea, put it in the chat or unmute yourself. What will multiply to 14 and add up to 9? If we make our chart, because we're not sure, we can do 1 and 14 or 2 and 7. Yeah. So when you multiply the 1 and the A and the C, that always goes to the top, and the B always goes to the bottom. And you're always going to multiply to the top number and add to the bottom number. That's a great question. So what multiplies to 14 and adds up to 9?
2 and 7.
2 and 7. So we're going to do 2 and 7. Then we just put our stuff in the right order. This first term is the first thing we put in the parentheses. So m squared. And this last term is the last thing we put in the parentheses. And then we want to put the middle of our X puzzle into the parentheses. And the order doesn't matter. I usually put my smaller number first and my bigger number second, but I don't always. So we're going to do plus 2x and 7x. Okay, So we've got step number 1 is find the ABC. Step number 2 is multiply the A and the C in order to get the top number of our X puzzle. We've multiplied something, so that's what we're looking for the factors of. And then we take the third number and put it at the bottom. That's what we're looking to add. Then once we find our factors, the 2 and the 7, we put everything back together. The beginning goes at the beginning, the end goes at the end, and the middle goes in the middle. It just kind of makes sense. Now is where we have to go back to what we were doing yesterday. What's the greatest common factor of m squared and 2m? What can I divide both of those by? And oh, that's an m, not an x. What can I divide both m squared and 2m by? I know many of you are saying m in your head. You're just not brave enough to say it out loud. We want to divide by m, right? So that m, greatest common factor, is going to come to the outside. When we do that division, m squared divided by m is just m. And 2m divided by m is 2. Now we're going to look at the second set of parentheses. What can I divide both 7m and 14 by? What can I divide both 7m and 14 by? Somebody is saying 7 in their head. They just don't want to say it out loud. I'm not going to say who, but I can see it. So 7m divided by 7 is going to give me m, and 14 divided by 7 is going to give me 2. Notice that the m plus 2 and the m plus 2 match. If you don't get 2 parentheses at the end that match, you've done something wrong. So I'm going to put those matching parentheses together, and then I'm going to take those greatest common factors, the m and the 7, and I'm going to make them into their own parentheses. Those are the factors. Lots of teachers have different ways of doing this, but this way will work almost every single time. So like 95% of the time, this way will work. So you won't have to learn any other ways. Okay. I'll give you a minute to write that down, and then we're going to go look at number 2. Just going to give myself some room. So number 2, write this one down on a piece of paper. N squared minus 4n minus 32. Step number 1 was to find those A, B's, and C's. So what's the A equal?
1,
1. What's the B equal?
4,
We want to take that negative in front of it. I'm so glad you said 4. We want the negative 4. Even though that says subtract 4, when I take the terms apart and separate them, that becomes a negative, right? And sometimes that can be confusing. And then what's the C value?
37,
Yes, ma'am, negative 32. So when we multiply, because that's the next step, is to set up this X puzzle, we want to multiply 1 times negative 32, and that goes where, Bryce?
Wait, what did you say?
1 times negative 32, that goes to the top, right? And then what goes to the bottom? The negative 4, absolutely. So A times C goes to the top of the X puzzle, and the B goes to the bottom, always and forever. So what multiplies to negative 32 and adds to negative 4? Well, we can come down here and make ourselves a little chart if we want. 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 8, 5, 6, I think that's it. So which of those will add up to negative 4? And multiply to negative 32. about this pair? What do I need to modify in order to make 4 and 8 add up to -4 and multiply to -32?
Do you need to make... we multiply -4 and 8 and then add -4 and 8?
We definitely need one of them negative. If the 4 we're left with is negative, then the 8 has to be negative. The biggest number has to match the sign of the bottom number. Okay, so the biggest number in your sides have to match the sign of the bottom number. So 4 plus -8 is going to give me -4, and 4 times -8 is going to give me -32. Now it's time to put it all back together. So the beginning goes at the beginning, the end goes at the end, and the middles go in the middle. So n squared is the beginning, plus 4n is the middle, minus 8n is the middle, and then minus 32 is the end, right? The beginning goes at the beginning, the end goes at the end, and the middles go in the middle. You just have to remember to add your variables. Now we got to do greatest common factor. I'm just going to erase this a little bit because I feel like it's going to get cluttered if I don't. So what's the greatest common factor of n squared and 4n? What can I divide both of those by? 1n. Yeah, absolutely. So the n is going to come out. It's like reverse distribution, remember from yesterday. And then I just do the division one at a time. It's a lot of steps. It is a lot of steps. That's why we're only doing 6 problems. None of the steps are really that hard. There's just a lot of them. So n squared divided by n is going to leave me 1n. And then 4n divided by n is going to give me 4. Here, because both of these are negative, I'm going to take out a -8. Okay, because both of those terms are negative and I want to end up with a +4, I'm going to take out a -8. So if I divide everything by -8, I'm left with an n, and I'm left with a +4. These guys match. That's the goal. When you're done with this process, you want 2 parentheses that match. So I'm going to take those matching parentheses and I'm going to write them down. That's one of my factors. And then I've got to come back over here and I've got to combine my greatest common factors, n minus 8. These are my 2 factors. When we go to take the blue puzzle piece quiz in a little while, you're going to have to choose those 2 factors, n minus 8 and n plus 4. Just because you're going to take a quiz on a computer doesn't mean you don't have to do all this work. Do all of the work. Show it on a piece of paper. Okay. I'll give you a minute to grab that, and then we're going to go to question 3. If you're already kind of thinking you know how to do question 3, go ahead and start it out. Write it down, identify the A, B, and C. So if we write it out, we've got the A equals, the B equals, and the C equals. The A is 1, the B is 2, the C is -3. What do I put in my X puzzle? What goes to the top? -3, absolutely. And then what goes to the bottom?
2.
+2, for sure. What multiplies to -3 and adds up to 2? Well, there are only two factors of 3, 1 and 3. Which one has to be negative if the 2 is positive?
Negative
The 2 has to be the same size as the biggest number. So the 2 and the 3 have to be the same. So which one has to be negative?
1.
The 1. You can always check. If you put the negative before the 3, then you do negative 3 plus 1 and you get negative 2. That doesn't work out, right? So we've got to do 3 plus negative 1 is positive 2. So then we go and we put everything back together. Put the beginning at the beginning, and then minus 1n, and then the middle 3n. Remember, you got to put your n's in there, right? That's the middle of our equation or our expression here, and then the end goes at the end. What's the next step? Take out the greatest common factor. Absolutely. So what can I divide both n squared and 1n by? N. Absolutely. So my n is going to go to the front of the parentheses. And then we just do our division. N squared divided by n is n. 2 minus 1 is 1. And then 1n divided by n. Those n's cancel out, and you're left with that invisible 1. If you don't put the 1n in there, you might think that just goes away. Don't make that mistake. And then 3n minus 3, what's the common factor there? What can I divide 3n and 3 both by? Somebody wants to say 3, they're just not brave enough. Be brave. We take that positive 3 out and we put it at the front, and when we divide, the 3's go away, and we're left with n minus 1. Okay? A lot of steps here. We have succeeded in our mission. The n minus 1's match. I love it when a plan comes together. And then we take out our greatest common factor from the first parentheses and the greatest common factor from the second parentheses, and you end up with n plus 3. Okay? If the struggle is real, I guarantee you are not alone. The only way to make the struggle go away is to practice. Okay, so commit to your own success and continue writing these down. I promise, promise, promise they will make sense after you do enough practice. But until you do the practice, they're going to be confusing. Getting all of these little tiny steps. And I wish I could write it more clearly. It looks like chicken scratch to me when I go back and I look at these. We ready to go look at number 4? Number 4 changes. How does number 4 change?
I don't know.
I don't have a 1 in the front anymore. When I do the A, the B, and the C, I've got a number there now. We haven't had a number there before. The process is still the same though. So we want to multiply to get to the top of the X puzzle. So we're going to do 3 times 8. That goes to the top. 3 times 8 is 24. And then the minus 14 goes to the bottom. So that one little change doesn't really change much, right? So what multiplies to 24 and adds to 14? Multiplies to 24 and adds to 14. Well, we can do 1 and 24. We can do 2 and 12. We can do 3 and 8, or we can do 4 and 6. Which pair do we want?
4 and 6.
4 and 6. 4 plus 6 is going to give me 10. That's a really good guess. Is there a better guess?
I have another one. Is it 2 and 12?
It is 2 and 12. So this one's tricky because we haven't done one like this before. We definitely want 2 and 12 because 2 and 12 make positive 14, but we want negative 14. So we got to make them both negative, right? So then check it. Always check your X puzzle. Negative 2 plus negative 12 is negative 14. That works. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So that also works, right? So then we put it all together. We put our first term first, 3x squared. Got my first term. Then I put my middle term then. Make sure you put those x's. Sometimes I forget those. Grab those negative signs. They're important. And then you need to finish it with a plus 8. Now we need to look for greatest common factors. Anybody got any ideas? For sure, x at the beginning. So I can divide both of those by x. So the x comes to the front. When I do my division, I get 3x minus 2. What about the next one? I want to end up with 3x minus 2. So what do I have to take out of negative 12x plus 8? Can I take out 4?
Oh, yes.
Right? So if I take out the 4, though, I'm going to end up with negative 3x and positive 2. So let's take out a negative 4. And these negatives are where it'll trip you up frequently, right? The negatives are just kind of a pain in the neck. And with practice, you'll get good at it at the predicting. So negative 12 divided by negative 4 is positive 3. And that's what I wanted. That's what I got. And then positive 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. That's what I wanted, and that's what I got. Remember, those parentheses have to match exactly. So then we write down our factor that matches, right? That's one of our factors. And then we got to put together our greatest common factors, and that's our other factor. So when you go to do the quiz today or the practice in the blue puzzle piece, you're going to have multiple choices and you're going to have to click all that apply. So you would click on those 2 answer choices.
Wait, can you repeat that?
I can. So when you get to the blue puzzle piece today, because we're going to finish with a blue puzzle piece, you're going to be given equations like this or expressions like this. There's no equal sign, so it's an expression. You're going to have to do all of this work. Don't shortchange yourself. Do all of the steps, make the X puzzle, put it back together, take out the greatest common factor. But then the answer choices, it's going to be multiple choice. You're going to have to select those 2 factors from a list. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8 choices. It'll make sense when we get there. I promise. I got you. All right. We just did one with a leading coefficient. Oh, yikes. What happened? So how do I do number 5? Somebody else talk. My voice is getting tired. Crickets. What's step 1? Finding the variables. What are the variables?
For A, 5. For B, negative 12. For C, 7.
Awesome. What's the next step? Somebody other than Ela.
Multiply A and C.
Multiply A and C. So if I multiply A and C, what do I get?
35.
Beautiful. If the 35 goes at the top of my X puzzle, what number goes to the bottom?
Negative 12.
Fantastic. Thomas, that was you, right? So I want somebody other than Thomas. What multiplies to negative 35 and adds up to negative 12? What multiplies to 35 and adds up to negative 12? If you're not... Say it again.
6.
6? Is 6 a factor of 35? 6 is a factor of 36. So, Elias, what should it be? Don't hold back. If you know, you know. Help us out.
-5 and -7.
Awesome. -5 and -7. So when we put it all back together, the beginning goes at the beginning, the middle goes in the middle, and the end goes at the end. So 5x squared minus 5x times -7x plus 7. What can I take out? What can I divide this first set of parentheses by? Hopefully everybody's already writing 5x. Over here, actually, let's do the math first. So 5x and then x minus 1. If I want this term to be x minus 1, then over here I need to take out a -7. Okay, I want a positive x, so I've got to divide by a -7. So -7 times x plus 1. That's the tough part, to see that you have to take out that -7. And then when you put it all back together, you get x plus 1 and 5x minus 7. Those are your two factors. So in a multiple choice thing, you would want to choose both of those choices. Are we starting to feel pretty confident about this? At least a 5 out of 10? Are we at a 5 out of 10?
Yes.
Sweet. All right. Give it a go. What do we do for number 6? What goes at the top of my puzzle? You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Challenge yourself. If you haven't talked today, now is your opportunity. What is 9 times -4?
-36.
-36. And then what goes at the bottom?
9.
+9. What multiplies to -36? That's a 6. And adds up to 9. So again, if you're not sure, make the table. I always start with 1 in the number. It's even, so I can divide by 2, 2 and 18. We can divide it by 3, 3 and 12. This is where your multiplication comes in handy. 4 and 9. 5 doesn't work, and then I've got 6 and 6. So which pair of those numbers can you get 9 out of?
12.
12 and -3, because that's a -36. 12 and -3. The 12 has to be the same sign as the 9, because you want to end up with +9 and the -3. So then 9x squared plus 12x minus 3x minus 4. Any ideas for greatest common factors? I love 3. Are there any variables I can put with the 3? Because there are x's in both terms, I can definitely do that 3x. So the 3x comes to the outside. I do my division. I get 3x plus 4. And then what about the second set of parentheses? What's my greatest common factor there?
Would it be 1?
It would be 1. What flavor 1? A positive 1 or a negative 1? A negative 1. Yes. 3x plus 4. And your clue, because you're kind of being a math detective, is that those have to match. So they kind of look like they match. I've got 3x and 4, but I need to take out those negatives, right? So then I put together my greatest common factors, and I get 3x plus 4. You ready to do some practice on your own? And I unpause this. We're going to do n squared minus 10n plus 9. In our x puzzle, we're going to do 1 times 9 is 9, and negative 10 goes to the bottom. What multiplies to 9 and adds up to negative 10? Well, our only choices are 9 and 1 or 3 and 3. It's got to be 9 and 1, and they've got to be negative and negative. It's those negatives that make this hard. So then we put it all back together, n squared minus 9n and negative n plus 9, right? We're going to divide by n. So I get n and n minus 9. Because I want to n minus 9, I got to take out that negative 1. So negative 1 and n minus 9. These do get a lot easier as you practice with them. So I'm so impressed with everyone who did well. Lots of people got 100. So n minus 1 and n minus 9. Boom. That one should have been pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Let me erase this. We're going to go on to number 2. Boom. Question number 2. What do I do here? Going to multiply to get my top number. Bring down my middle number. That's the b. What multiplies to negative 24 and adds to 2? Well, it should be 6 and 4. Which one's negative? The 6 has to match the 2 in sign, so the 4 has to be negative. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24, and 6 plus negative 4 is positive 2. Put all that back together, m squared plus 6m minus 4m minus 24, right? Our middle stuff goes in the middle just with variables. Then we're going to take out our greatest common factor. What's the greatest common factor here? I'm looking in the chat. Everybody's asleep. An m? Question mark? So I'm left with m plus 6. And then because I have m plus 6, I got to take out that negative. So we want to divide by negative 4 and divide by negative 4. My handwriting got a little sloppy. That was a minus 24. So if I take out a negative 4, I'm left with m. And then that is going to be plus 6. So it worked out. M plus 6 is one of your terms, and that is somewhere over here. M plus 6. I don't know why Schoology puts those little 4 dots there, that little waffle. Kind of bugs me a little bit that it does that. And then you combine your greatest common factors, m minus 4 and m minus 4. Okay. When you've got a whole bunch of answer choices here, it's hard to like reverse engineer this. You really have to know what you're doing. Questions on that? I'm not hearing a lot of voices. Okay. I'm going to erase. What goes in my X puzzle? What goes at the top of the X puzzle in this problem? Negative 2 times 6, right? The top of our X puzzle is A times C. So 6x squared plus x minus 2. I got to multiply those two things together. That's what goes at the top of the X puzzle. And then I take that invisible 1. Remember, there's an invisible 1 there. So right off the bat, you know your multiplication tables. You should have 3 and 4. If I know I need to add up to something positive, my bigger number has to be positive, and I know I'm multiplying to something negative, so one of my numbers has to be negative. It just kind of, that's the only way it can work. So I'm going to put it all back together. 6x squared minus 3x and 4x minus 2. Find your greatest common factor. Hopefully everyone has said 3x and 2. So when I do that, 3x comes to the outside. I do my division of all 4 of my terms. So those boxes are where I'm dividing. 6x squared divided by 3x is 2x. Negative 3x divided by negative 3x, those don't just go away and evaporate. That's a negative 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. That's super important. And then 4x divided by 2, my 2 goes to the outside, and that's a plus 2 on the outside. That's going to be 2x and minus 1. Just because you know it should be 2x minus 1 doesn't mean you don't have to do that division. Do the division just to make sure that you've got the right answer. And then we want to put our greatest common factors together in a term. And we should have 3x. I feel like I should have more answer choices down here. There's a ton of answer choices down here. So 3x plus 2, 3x plus 2, and 2x minus 1, 2x minus 1. Questions? How are we feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? I had mostly 4s and 5s in the last class with 110 who was certain he got it. Tres más. I don't know how you actually say that in Spanish, but 2x squared plus 13x plus 15. What's the top of my x puzzle? 17 or 30? 30, absolutely. And then 13 goes to the bottom. So what multiplies to 30 but adds up to 13? What multiplies to 30 but adds up to 13? This part stresses out a lot of people. So if you need to, draw the t-table. Again, all I'm doing is going through the number line. 1 goes into 30 30 times. 2 goes into 30 15 times. 3 goes into 30 10 times. 5 goes into 36 times. I skipped 4 because 4 doesn't go into 30 evenly. So which pair of those will add up to 13? Or subtract to 13? These are all adding, so 3 and 10. And everything's a plus. I love it when everything is a positive. So 2x squared plus 3x plus 10x plus 15. Divide by x, divide by x, divide by 5, and divide by 5. X comes to the outside, 2x plus 3. 5 comes to the outside, and 2x plus 3. So our terms are 2x plus 3 and x plus 5. Last one. Yay! The crowd goes wild. Oh, just kidding. Not the last one. There's 2 more. How's our time? The chat is hiding our time. We got 4 minutes. All right. X squared, I would help type a pen. X squared plus 6x minus 72. What adds up to negative 72? Or multiplies to negative 72 and adds up to 6. 72 is a bigger number, so we've got to work this a little bit. So 72, 1 and 72, 2 and 36, 3 and 24. Uh-oh. And then I think we're going to get 6 and 12. And 6 and 12 maybe look like they're going to work. So 6 and 12. Those are positive. That's negative, right? So x squared minus 6x in the first set of parentheses, and then 12x minus 72 in the second set of parentheses. You can divide by an x and divide by a 12. So I get x and x minus 6 and plus 12 and x minus 6. So x plus 12 and x minus 6. Yes? Everybody's gone silent. Edith, I hate it when I don't read the questions correctly. It makes me crazy. Every test, I make some silly mistakes. All right, last one, guys. Stick it out. If you haven't written it down on a piece of paper, write it down on a piece of paper. I don't know. I just erased it. It'll be on the video if you need it. So what do I do here? What's step number 1? Multiply?
Yeah.
Okay. Step number 2, bring that down. What multiplies to 42 and adds to 11? Multiplies to 42 and adds to 11. Nothing's jumping out at me, so I got to do this. 42 and 2 and 21. I remember from yesterday it was 3 and 14. Oh, does that work? 3 and 14? What's negative and what's positive? So because I want to end up with negative 11 after I add, the 14 needs to be negative. Positive 3 plus negative 14, or positive 3 minus 14 is negative 11. And then 3 times negative 14 is negative 42, right? So you've got to get all your pluses and minuses straight in that little puzzle piece. And then plus 3k and minus 14k minus 6. Got to find our greatest common factors. I think it's just k here and negative 2. Right? Both of these are negative, so I can take out a negative 2. So then if I do my division, k comes to the outside. 7k squared divided by k is 7k. And 3k divided by k is 3. And then minus 2. 14k negative divided by negative 2 is going to be 7k. That's what I wanted. That's always a good thing. And then negative 6 divided by negative 2 is plus 3. So I definitely need a 7k plus 3, a 7k plus 3. There's no 7k plus 3. There is no 7k plus 3. There is a 7k plus 3. There's no 7k plus 3. So my answer choice is going to be this one. Okay. That's all I've got for you today.